Rain was tapping against the large windows of the courtroom, leaving long watery streaks on the glass. Behind the heavy wooden doors hung a tense silence. Only occasionally did muffled voices drift from beyond the hall, accompanied by the faint clicking of cameras from journalists eagerly waiting for a sensation. Alex Carter sat on the defendant's bench with a straight back and a frozen expression on his face. He was 31, but life had already left its mark on him. His short dark hair was slightly disheveled, light stubble covered his face, and dark circles under his eyes betrayed countless sleepless nights. He looked calm, but his clenched fists betrayed the tension boiling inside. "Defendant Alex Carter, rise!" The judge's voice echoed through the hall. Alex slowly stood up. His gaze met that of Judge Howard, an older man with gray hair and piercing eyes that concealed cold indifference. Howard sat high on his bench, like a king on a throne, holding a gavel in his hand. His dark robe emphasized his detachment and authority. "You are charged with financial fraud, money laundering, and document forgery." The judge's voice was clear, almost emotionless. "Do you plead guilty?" Alex lifted his head, his eyes flashing. "No, Your Honor. I didn't do this." A soft murmur swept through the courtroom. In the front row, a group of reporters were quickly jotting down Alex's words in their notepads. The prosecutor, a thin man with sharp features and dark hair, smiled faintly at the corners of his mouth. "We have all the evidence confirming your guilt, Mr. Carter." The prosecutor slowly stood and stepped closer. "Offshore transfers, forged contracts, testimony from your former partners. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Alex clenched his jaw. He knew exactly what this was, a trap. He had been set up. He had worked for a large financial company handling investments. A few months ago, he had discovered that his boss, Harrison Moore, had been manipulating reports and transferring large sums to shadow accounts. Alex had tried to expose the scheme, but instead, the accusations had fallen on him. "This is a setup." Alex's voice was firm. "Someone framed me. I had nothing to do with these transactions." Judge Howard shook his head. "Interesting," he said coldly. "But all the evidence points to you. And I have strong reasons to believe that you are guilty." "This is a conspiracy," Alex snapped, stepping forward. "They're trying to make me the scapegoat." "Mr. Carter," the judge interrupted him. "I suggest you control yourself. Otherwise, I will consider this a breach of courtroom decorum." Alex's heart was pounding. His gaze flicked toward the prosecutor, who sat down with a satisfied smirk. "Judge Howard," Alex's attorney rose to speak. "My client has the right to a fair trial. There are witnesses who—" "Enough." The judge's voice was sharp. "A decision will be made after reviewing all the evidence." Alex lowered his head. He knew his chances were slim. Judge Howard was known for his harsh rulings, and there were rumors that he had ties to those who wanted Alex behind bars. The judge raised the gavel. "This court is adjourned until tomorrow morning." The dull thud of the gavel sounded like a sentence. Alex watched as the judge stood up and confidently walked toward the exit. The prosecutor followed him. Alex remained standing, surrounded by guards. His hands were restrained by handcuffs. Somewhere in the hall, someone whispered, "He doesn't stand a chance. Howard's going to lock him up." Alex lowered his head, feeling the cold metal of the cuffs pressing into his skin. He understood perfectly well that this trial was just a performance, and that the judge had already decided his fate before the process even began. Handcuffs chilled his wrists as two guards in black uniforms escorted Alex out of the courtroom. Cameras flashed, journalists shouted questions, but Alex walked silently, focused on his own thoughts. His heart was pounding, but his face remained calm. "Alex, Alex, are you really guilty?" a young reporter with a microphone in hand shouted. Alex shot her a quick glance, but didn't respond. He was led into a dark hallway of the courthouse, where a small holding cell awaited him. The metal door clicked shut behind him. leaving him alone with his thoughts. He sank onto the narrow bench, grabbed his head with both hands, and sighed heavily. This was all a setup, he knew it. Harrison Moore hadn't just framed him. He had made sure that Judge Howard would deliver the right verdict. Harrison. Alex closed his eyes, recalling the day it all began. He had been working at the company for 5 years, and Harrison trusted him with managing major investment projects. Alex was careful, professional, and detail-oriented. But when he noticed strange transactions, large sums being transferred to offshore accounts under fake company names, he realized it was a money laundering scheme. "This is a mistake," he told Harrison in his office. "Someone is moving money through our accounts." Harrison smiled. "It's not a mistake, Alex. It's business." "Are you serious?" Alex's heart tightened. "You're setting up the company? This is illegal." "Calm down, Alex." Harrison stood up from his desk and approached him. His smile widened, turning cold. "No one will find out. I'm going to the police." Alex took a step back. "If you do that," Harrison's voice turned low and tense, "you'll be the one going to prison first. Do you think I'm not prepared? All the documents are under your name. To the court, you're the mastermind." "You wouldn't do that." "I already have," Harrison shrugged. Alex had walked out of the office with shaking hands. He reached out to the company's lawyers, tried to gather evidence. But a week later, FBI agents arrived at his door with an arrest warrant. And now he was here. The cell door clicked open, and Alex lifted his head. In the hallway stood his lawyer, a tall man in an expensive suit with sharp features. "Well, Alex, how are you feeling?" The lawyer sat down on the bench across from him. "Great." Alex gave a bitter smile. "You're in a bad spot." The lawyer clasped his hands together over his knees. "The prosecutor has everything: documents, account statements, testimony from your former colleagues. Judge Howard won't give you a chance." "I know." Alex ran a hand over his face. "We have one option." The lawyer leaned forward. "Take a deal. Plead guilty. You'll get 10 years instead of 30. So I should confess to a crime I didn't commit?" Alex looked at him. "It's better than life in prison." The lawyer shrugged. "Think about it. You have until morning." Alex said nothing. The lawyer stood up and left, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Plead guilty? No. That would mean defeat. Alex knew that his only chance to survive was to find evidence that could expose Harrison. But how? His phones were confiscated, documents destroyed, all avenues blocked. He lowered his head, resting his elbows on his knees, and closed his eyes. His mind began sinking into darkness when suddenly the door clicked open again. He lifted his head. A man in a black suit and dark sunglasses stood before him. "Who are you?" Alex asked warily. The man removed his sunglasses, revealing cold blue eyes. "I'm here to help," the stranger said. "Help? How?" The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I know you're innocent, and I know who's behind this." Alex narrowed his eyes. "Who?" "Harrison is just a player." The man sat on the bench across from him. "The real players are higher up. And if you want to get out of here alive, you'll have to play by new rules." "Why should I trust you?" Alex tensed. The man leaned forward and whispered, "Because I work for someone who wants justice. And that person has the power to stop this." "Who is it?" The stranger smiled. "That's not important right now. What matters is, are you ready to accept help or not?" Alex looked into his eyes. There was something dangerous there, but also hope. "What do I need to do?" "First, survive tomorrow's hearing. And don't take any deals. And then, we'll get you out. But you'll have to take a risk." Alex hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Deal." The man stood up and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back and said, "Tomorrow, the real game begins. Be ready." The door closed. Alex leaned back against the bench, feeling a faint spark of hope ignite in his chest. He didn't know what would happen tomorrow, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had a chance. The courtroom was filled with tense silence. Judge Howard sat in his place, tapping his gavel against the wooden surface, trying to calm the commotion among those present. Alex stood at the center of the room in handcuffs, his gaze cold, but his heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Order in the court. Judge Howard's voice boomed. We are here to deliver the verdict in the case of Alex Williams. In the front row, the prosecutor sat with a smug smile. Harrison Moore was also present. He sat at the back of the room, arms crossed over his chest, a barely noticeable smile on his face. Alex could feel his gaze on him. Defendant, rise, the judge ordered. Alex stood up. His hands were cuffed, but he held his head high. After reviewing all the evidence and testimony, the court finds you. The judge paused, raising his gavel to announce the verdict. At that moment, the courtroom doors burst open with a loud crash. Everyone turned. Donald Trump walked into the courtroom. He was wearing a dark suit, his signature hairstyle perfectly in place, and his expression focused and determined. Behind him were 4 bodyguards in black suits, followed closely by a group of uniformed police officers. What is the meaning of this? Judge Howard stood up, his face red with anger. Trump confidently approached the center of the room, his gaze fixed on Alex. Your Honor, I demand an immediate halt to this trial. Trump's voice was firm, instantly silencing the noise in the room. This is illegal, the judge shouted. I have all the evidence proving the defendant's guilt. Trump looked at him with disdain. You don't have evidence, you have forgery. And I have proof that this trial is pure corruption. He nodded to a bodyguard, who handed him a folder of documents. Trump walked up to the judge and placed a folder on the desk. In this folder are all the documents proving that money was transferred to accounts controlled by Harrison Moore, Trump said, shooting a cold glance at Harrison. And also recordings of phone calls in which Harrison gave orders to frame Alex. A loud murmur swept through the courtroom. Harrison paled. This is a lie, Harrison shouted, rising from his seat. Trump turned toward the police officers. Arrest him. You have no right, Harrison screamed. The officers immediately approached him, grabbed his arms, and twisted them behind his back. The handcuffs clicked into place, and Harrison flinched but didn't resist. This is a mistake. I'm innocent, he shouted as the police led him toward the exit. Judge Howard stood stunned, his face burning red with rage. This is a violation of procedure, he screamed. Procedure. Trump stepped closer to the judge, his eyes narrowing. Was the procedure to convict an innocent man? Or was your procedure taking bribes from Harrison? The judge started to say something, but Trump raised his hand. You'll be removed. Effective immediately. You don't have the authority. The judge's voice cracked into a falsetto. Are you sure? Trump smiled faintly. Let's see what the Supreme Court has to say. Trump turned toward the police. Take him to. 2 officers approached the judge. His eyes widened, and he began to mutter something, but the handcuffs were already clicking onto his wrists. Alex stood at the center of the room, still in handcuffs, stunned by what was happening. Trump approached him, and one of the bodyguards removed the handcuffs from Alex's wrists. You saved me. Alex looked at him with disbelief. Trump gave a slight smile. I just corrected a mistake. But why? Alex frowned. Don't you see? Trump leaned in closer and whispered, this is only the beginning. He patted Alex on the shoulder and turned toward the exit. The police escorted the judge and Harrison out of the courtroom, while the rest of the attendees whispered in shocked confusion. Alex ran a hand over his face, took a deep breath, and slowly walked out of the courtroom. A group of reporters was waiting at the entrance and immediately swarmed him with questions. Alex, what will you do next? He stopped for a moment, looked straight into the camera lens, and said coldly, I'm going to find the one behind all this. In the crowd, he noticed a man in a black suit, the same man who had warned him before the trial. The man gave a barely noticeable nod and disappeared into the crowd. The game had only just begun. Alex stood in the middle of the courtroom, still stunned by what had just happened. His hands were no longer shackled, but the tension inside him remained. Trump stood next to him, calmly observing the unfolding events. Judge Howard was in handcuffs, his face red with anger and shame. Harrison Moore stood beside him, held by two police officers. He was casting nervous glances around, seemingly searching for an escape, but it was clear there was no way out now. This is a mistake, Judge Howard yelled, trying to free his hands. You have no right to treat me like this. I am a federal judge. Former federal judge, Trump said coldly, stepping forward. After today, you will have a new title, federal prison inmate. Howard gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. You have no evidence. Trump snorted and raised his hand. One of his guards approached and handed him a tablet. Trump turned on the video and showed it to the judge. Let me show you how honestly you performed your job. On the screen appeared footage from a hidden camera in the judge's office. Howard was sitting at a desk facing Harrison Moore. The conversation was clearly audible. It should look like a routine sentence, Harrison said, swallowing whiskey. Don't worry, the judge replied. Alex will be locked away for a long time. After that, his company will be yours. Judge Howard went pale, and Harrison lowered his head, realizing this was the end. This is a forgery, Howard shouted, but his voice trembled. Forgery. Trump tilted his head. Oh, I don't think so. We also have bank transaction records, phone calls, and even witnesses. The doors of the courtroom opened again. Two FBI agents in dark suits entered. They approached Harrison and the judge, showing arrest warrants. Judge Howard, Harrison Moore, you are under arrest for corruption, falsifying evidence, conspiracy, and attempting to illegally seize property. The officer read the charges. You have the right to remain silent. Howard jerked, trying to break free from the agent's hold, but the handcuffs were already tightly secured around his wrists. You'll regret this, he screamed as the agents began escorting him out of the room. Hardly, Trump replied calmly. Harrison remained silent. His face had turned pale, and his gaze was empty. He knew it was over. The police let him out, following the judge. When the door closed, silence filled the courtroom. Alex was still standing in place, trying to process what had just happened. Trump approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Well, Alex, congratulations on your victory. Alex slowly nodded. Thank you. But how did you do it? Trump barely smiled. I have connections in the FBI and the CIA and a few other places you'd rather not know about. Alex furrowed his brow. Why did you do it? Trump paused for a moment, then looked at him seriously. I know Harrison wasn't working alone, and the people behind him are just the tip of the iceberg. Do you think this is not over yet? Trump smiled. This is just the beginning. He turned and headed for the exit. Alex stood still, his heart racing, but now there was a new feeling in his chest, confidence. Judge Howard and Harrison Moore were sentenced to 20 years in prison for corruption and conspiracy. All charges against Alex were dropped. Alex stepped out of the courthouse, breathing in the cold air. A group of journalists stood ahead, camera flashes blinding him, but he no longer felt fear. He knew this was just the beginning, and he was ready for the next step. The next few days felt like a blur for Alex. He woke up with a thought that it could all have been a dream, but it was reality. Judge Howard and Harrison Moore were in prison. The charges were dropped, and his name was clean again. Alex sat in his office, gazing through the panoramic window at the city lights. His company had survived. There were no more threats from shareholders, clients began returning, and the stock market was rising. But the thought of how far everything had gone still lingered in his mind. Suddenly, the door opened, and Trump walked into the office. "So what's it like being back on top?" he asked, sitting in the chair across from Alex. Alex smiled. "It feels like I just came back from war." Trump nodded. "That's exactly how it was. But the main thing is you won. Thanks to you." Alex looked at him seriously. "Why did you do it?" Trump paused, looked out at the city lights, and quietly replied, "I see potential in you. You're young, smart, and you have something most people don't, character. People like you are easy to break. But you stood strong." Alex stood up and walked over to the window. "But this isn't over, right?" Trump smiled. "No, it's just the beginning." He stood up and headed for the door, but before he opened it, he stopped. "Alex, remember, there is no justice in this world. There's only power. If you want to survive, you need to be stronger than everyone else." Alex silently nodded. Trump left, and the room fell silent. Alex stood by the window for another minute, staring at the city lights. Then he turned to the desk, sat down, and opened his laptop. On the screen was an empty field for a new email. Alex began typing. "To the board of directors." His fingers quickly glided across the keyboard. His company had survived. He had survived. And now he was ready to take everything back, and even more.